Good morning, everyone, and Happy New Year. I hope that everyone has had a healthy and safe holiday. And for most of us, I hope that we've had a restful holiday because this year has already started off with full steam. But I certainly am glad to see a lot of you at least here virtually. Also understand we have the public, which is also able to tune into today's meeting virtually as well. And want to thank you for joining today's meeting. This morning, we're going to walk through today's agenda. And I would like to just make sure we have all of our commissioners present so that I can be responsive as we go through this agenda. Right now, I see Commissioner Burrow and I also saw Commissioner Gamble somewhere. But I spoke with Commissioner Richardson. I know she was not feeling well over the weekend. She may not be tuning in today. Okay, I see Commissioner Sheffield. Is Commissioner Richardson here? Did I hear
I'm
someone?
here.
Oh, wonderful, but I'm certainly not sounding your best. Thank you for being here today, Commissioner, considering the circumstances. All right, with that, we are going to walk through our first item. Typically at our second Tuesday meeting, we have an update regarding COVID-19 from Cobb Douglas Public Health. Are there any questions about that? Okay, uniquely, for our BOC meeting, we do not have any other presentations. So with that, we would just dive right into our public hearings for the meeting. And the first public hearing is to address the proposed closure on Leland Drive. Are there any questions about that? Okay.
Yes,
I-
one question.
Oh,
Could we have a GIS of that closure?
We'll get that to you this morning.
Thank you.
are there any other questions? All right, we'll move on to the next work session. It's regarding Cobb County's International Airport. Does anyone have any questions regarding this matter? All right, we move on to the next item regarding the South Cobb Water Reclamation Facility. Excellent. Thank you, appreciate it. Are there any questions about agenda item number 4?
None for me.
All right, moving on to agenda item number 5. Are there any questions about that particular item dealing with the customer relationship management system? All right, and that will conclude our public hearings for tomorrow's meeting. After the public hearing, we'll have public comment. And it's my understanding, instructions and information about that have all been published. All
Yep.
right, very good.
People signed up.
All right, excellent.
So far, we have, 9
9 speakers, okay.
have been sent.
Did you say that there were people already signed up?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am, we have 9 that confirmed.
9?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
All righty, moving into the consent agenda. I will do these in bank as typical. If anybody has any questions regarding the sheriff's items 6 through 8, please feel free to weigh in.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, I have one question.
Yes,
Regarding
ma'am.
number 6. I know our fire department has Narcan on their equipment. Could we do the same, apply for this same type of grant that the sheriff's doing with our police staff in Arkan?
I'll address that, Commissioner Burrow, and I shared this with Commissioner Gambrell earlier this morning. There have been some ongoing conversations with our police department and us willing to allow them to carry Narcan. And Chief Register has been a part of many of those conversations over the last few years. And then with Chief Cox right before he left, we have come to decide that it is probably that time that we go this route with our police department as well, for a number of reasons. And so I told Commissioner Gambrell, and I'll share it with all of you, you can probably look at something very similar to this coming in the next agenda or two. I just got to get with Deputy Chief Hamilton and Deputy Chief Van Hooser just to confirm that this is a direction that they agree that we need to go with our police department as well.
Yeah, we have been talking about it for quite a while, so this would be a good time to do something. So
Yes,
thank
ma'am.
you. Thank you, Director.
Agree, Commissioner Burrow. Thank you. Are there any other questions?
I have a question on number 7,
Okay.
and I'm not sure if Sheriff Owens is on or one of his representatives.
This is Chief Register. I'm on for.
Hey, Chief
Sheriff's
Register.
office.
I had sent a question, and it's the last paragraph in the background statement. It says the new recruits are offered 16 classes, 2 hours. Are those 16 classes totaling 2 hours, or are those 16 classes 2 hours each?
They're 2 hours each. They're part of the sheriff's pre-mandate training. Do a little different. We don't have a training program per se for the sheriff's office. Our applicants, when we hire them, go to the North Central Law Enforcement facility, and we give them pre-mandate training, which consists of defensive tactics, firearms, EVOC, and some other subject matter prior to them attending to enhance their ability to pass when they get there.
Okay, I was just curious because again, the agenda item doesn't say 2 hours each. It was kind of open-ended. That's why I'm questioning it.
Yes, ma'am.
That's all I had.
Okay, Commissioner. Thank you, ma'am.
Can we update the language to reflect that as 2 hours each per class?
We can redo it if you would like for us to.
I would just add each in the parentheses, 2 hours, just add each class.
Okay, Commissioners, we have that, and we'll make that change.
Thank you, Commissioners. Are there any other questions regarding agenda item number 8 before we move on? All right, moving on to the tax commissioners items. Are there any questions regarding agenda items number 9 and 10?
I just have one question or clarification for number 10. I thought it was always the tax commissioner's authority to waive any penalties or fees. Because we get requests from constituents all the time, and we refer them to our Madam Tax Commissioner, hey Carla, because she's the only one that has the authority to do that, not as a constitutional officer, not us. So why do we have to? Why are we doing this? Please explain.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you, Commissioner Burrow. Actually, according to the law, the BLC has to, or not doesn't have to, but that authority for me to waive penalty and interest is based on a delegation from the BLC as well as a resolution.
Okay.
Bill, can you interpret that so it's clear? From what I've read, this is per state code that authority lies within the BOC. However, as Commissioner Burrow stated, this is something that we do delegate or confer to the tax commissioner.
Correct, exactly.
Okay.
And we've always done that. This is bureau practice as part of what we do. So.
Okay. Thanks. Thanks, Commissioner Jackson. Are there any other questions pertaining to the tax commissioner's items? Thanks. And just for clarification, the commissioner who provided that, we delegate that. So just thank you for clarifying it to us here. All right, moving on to the DA. The DA has items 11 through 13. Are there any questions? Is anybody here from the DA's office?
I'm here, Chairwoman Cupid. This is Kim McCoy.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I saw very quickly something in my inbox regarding agenda item number 13. I didn't read it. Are there any changes to that item?
No, ma'am. I believe Commissioner Gambrell had a question this morning that DA Brody answered. I'm
Okay,
not sure if that's what it was.
okay, it may have been if there's no changes. Commissioner Gamble, were your questions answered?
At this point, yes, until I have a chance to read it a couple more times, and then I will get with DA Brody if I have any additional.
Okay, thank you. Do any other commissioners have any items? Congratulations to the DA's office, by the way, for that grant for item number 11. Significant.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, moving on to Superior Court Administration. Are there any questions related to item 14?
Yeah, I have a question regarding the amount for the grant. Do we know what that will be?
Commissioner, this
You know
is
what-
Commissioner Hansard with Superior Court Administration. The grant is kind of informally capped at about $2 million. So we expect it'll be around that amount.
Okay, thanks.
But that, as far as what we ask for, as far as what they give us is up to the Judicial Council.
Okay.
How does that work with the support that the BOC has provided to the Floridas? Regarding court expansion.
We typically ask any organization receiving ARPA money to use their money first.
Okay,
And then if we can leverage ours, as you all discussed how you want to use ARPA, then we can go from there.
okay,
So any department that's receiving ARPA money, was the airport or DOT or senior services, they always bring it back for the board to accept those funds.
okay,
And then as you all think through how you want to use your ARPA funds, we always look at it against what's already been received
okay,
and what their need is.
okay. Have we expended any funds from our allocation?
Yes, we have.
Okay,
We can provide you an update today if you'd like. I can
Yes.
set one when we were doing the interview, but I haven't run a new one for you today.
okay, that'd be great. You can send out to the commissioners.
Will do.
Thank you.
We spent about 7 days, and Jimmy, I went over this morning, but Jimmy also has a spreadsheet of what's been requested by various departments, including the courts.
Okay,
And so what we would ask, Chris, is that if you have, once you receive the grant, and if we've not made any allocation from the county's ARPA money, is to work with us so that we can leverage those dollars and not have those same dollars set aside for something you may have already received.
Yes, ma'am. We've been very careful not to make, we haven't made any duplicate requests at this point and are trying to avoid making duplicate requests. So yes, we'll keep working with you to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
thank you. Okay, next we have the water system. They have just one item, number 15. Are there any questions regarding item 15? All right, moving on to transportation. DOT has items 16 through 21. And I'll go ahead and just take some time for commissioners to go through those to see if you have any questions. Okay. Not hearing that there are any questions. Commissioner Burrow, congrats on moving that support for the Noonday Creek Trail for item 17. Good to see progress being made with that.
Thank you, DOT.
Yes, thank you, Drew and team. All right, with that, we're going to move on to information services. They just have one item, item number 22. Are there any questions?
Kimberly answered my question in her email yesterday.
Are there any other questions? Thank you, Kimberly. And moving on to property management, we have items 23 through 25. Take time for commissioners to go through those to see if you have any questions.
I do have a question on 24 regarding the elevator door operators. I wanted to know how many elevator door operators that we're talking about and how close are the elevators to the end of its useful life?
We have, ma'am, what was that again? You broke up on that. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. How many elevator door operators are we replacing, and how close are the elevators to the end of its useful life?
We're replacing one
Okay.
and just one.
Okay.
And useful life, that really depends. I mean, we can keep once the shaft goes in, we can keep rebuilding and modernizing them as we go. They're probably halfway through their life cycle right now.
Okay. All right. That's good. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, are there any other questions for 23 through 25? Okay, we'll move on to item number 26 for elections and registration. Do we have any questions? Okay, moving on to public safety. Emergency management has item 27. Are there any questions?
I don't have a question. It's just a typo on page 79. It has Clayton County instead of Cobb
Okay,
above the chairwoman's signature line.
thank you. That must have been a boilerplate from the agency. Good looking out, Commissioner. Okay, we got you. Okay. Good. Are there any other questions regarding item number 27? Okay, finance, their typical resolution to adopt all budget amendments. Are there any questions for 28? And then Cobb Works has agenda item number 29. Are there any questions regarding this matter? Okay, and last matter on consent is to approve the minutes. Are listed. Are there any questions regarding the minutes? All right, we are now moving on to our regular agenda. We'll take these items one by one. First, starting off with transportation. Are there any questions regarding item 31?
Yeah, I have a question on page 144. There's a budgeted item for 301,000, but the funding is for 300. Am I missing something with that extra $1,000?
Let me look into that and I'll send you an email by the end of the day.
Okay, thanks, Drew.
Are there any other questions? It's good to see that project move along, Drew and Commissioner. Okay. Item number 32, are there any questions? All right, moving on to agenda item 33. Are there any questions? Good to see that project move along, Commissioner Richardson. Also, item 34. Right. Next, we have our public safety tab. We have one item under emergency management.
I have one question.
Yes, Commissioner.
It says that the funding will be made available with the reallocation of previously approved general fund contingency. Was this the original CARES Act money that went back into the general fund?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And, are we still on track for those to come in this week?
Yes, ma'am. They're scheduled to be in Thursday.
Okay.
And for those of the general public who may not have our agenda, this matters regarding the at-home test kits for COVID-19.
I have a issue with the reallocation of the CARES funds. Just back on December 14th, we were told that the allocation that was made into this account was to cover eligible public safety payroll expenditures. So now to take this out and claim that these kits are an eligible expense under the CARES Act, while that might have been true, the CARES Act also required us to have all the expenditures done by December 31st. So to now turn around and take that money where we had told the federal government, we use this money to cover for salaries, and now we're shifting it to purchase at-home test kits. To me, that's a misappropriation of funds, and it's also very misleading because when I approved this agenda item back on December 14th, I was under the assumption that money was going to cover salaries for our public safety, not to then be turned around to be used to purchase at-home testing kits, which are really not going to help get rid of this pandemic. It is a one-time thing that people can do, and we haven't even determined how they're going to be distributed. So I don't think this is an appropriate use of these funds.
Commissioner, this is Bill Volkman. So you're correct. On the December agenda item, we did close out the CARES and sent the money back to reimburse for public safety salaries, which then freed up general fund dollars that were previously allocated. That money was put into a contingency account, and we're simply taking the money out of that contingency account and using it for these at-home test kits. So by sending the money back to reimburse public safety salaries, we did in fact meet the CARES obligation, and that agenda item did close out the CARES fund. So these are essentially general fund contingency dollars that were created by using the CARES money to reimburse for public safety salaries. So that way you don't have a misappropriation of funds here. We did meet the CARES requirement through that agenda item and close it out. And actually the final CARES report has been submitted. So this would have been general fund dollars that would have otherwise gone to public safety salaries that we're able to save and move into contingency account. And we're reappropriating that contingency for the at-home test kits. I hope that clarifies.
Well,
Well, it does clarify, but it also goes to show you that we really didn't need the CARES funds to cover our salaries of our public safety officers because we had sufficient funding in our general fund to do that anyways. So again, I cannot support that for the means of how we are transferring the money. In addition, again, the agenda item I approved back in December was, again, my thought was we were reimbursing public safety salaries that we hadn't planned on expending due to COVID. So that's one part of it.
So,
if I may,
Bill, for clarification, with respect to paying the public safety salaries, it's not that we could not afford to do it, but since we had to allocate the CARES fund by a deadline, the decision was made to use it for that reason. But it's not, we didn't use it for that reason because we could not otherwise afford to do it. It's just that we had to use those funds. So we decided to use it for that. Is that correct?
Yes, Commissioner, you're correct. With any local governments, all of public safety salaries were eligible and even the ones that were pre-budgeted. So for example, anytime we reimburse public safety salaries through CARES, those were pre-budgeted items already. Yes, we did incur some additional costs and workload, but it was minimal compared to what we used for CARES reimbursement. So due to the deadline and to meet the eligibility requirements, we were able to send that money back to reimburse public safety salaries. But to your point, yes, those were already budgeted. It was not an additional cost, which then freed up general fund dollars to be used for to address ongoing pandemic related issues, which is one of the items that we're bringing forward today.
Okay, I see. Thank you.
Madam
Commissioner
Chair.
Earl, yes, ma'am.
Okay, originally with the CARES Act money, we didn't know if the salaries would be covered or eligible initially. So we took it out of the general fund for public safety and or police and agreed that we would reimburse if we found out it was eligible, which it was. But my question is, why are we using general fund contingencies for test kits when we have ARPA money? Are they not eligible? Is this not eligible under the new CARES Act ARPA money rather than general fund contingency? Or is that contingency that we're using this for original CARES Act money in the general fund?
Commissioner, to your point, this is original CARES Act money that has been set aside in the general fund. And the reason we did that is because we knew there'd be ongoing pandemic related expenses beyond the deadline. So that's why we set this aside in contingency for things like the testing kits that we're bringing today. We know that cleaning is ongoing. So there's a variety of other expenses. So we went ahead and set those aside to address pandemic related expenditures.
So this falls under EMA, correct? Equipment and PPE and all that. Okay.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
Commissioner Richardson, did you have any questions?
I think they were all covered.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we will now move on to Human Resources. They have agenda item number 36. Do commissioners have any questions? Okay, moving on to Finance, agenda item number 37. Are there any questions?
Bill, I know when I discussed this with you, I understood why we didn't want to put it into the policy that, the previous board had determined they wanted to get to a 35%, reserve because it could potentially ding us with the, rating agency if we were not at 35. But I thought it was my understanding that we were going to put in some kind of directive as far as the goal between the 25 and the 35 of how that funding would be looked at, appropriated, et cetera. And I did not see that in here.
So Commissioner, it was my understanding that I thought I would receive direction during the board meeting to bring this back forward on an annual basis of working towards that goal of 35%. And then go ahead and commit to the board to do so. So that way we could continue to review this. And if it is in fact the goal of the board to reach that 35%, we bring it back on an annual basis and be willing to adjust the policy upward or at the board's discretion based on how the previous year activity, how we performed. So that was kind of where I was thinking we were going. So if I misunderstood, I apologize, but I think that would be a good way to go, because that way we can address it on an each year basis with the goal of working to the 35. And I think it would be great to have it on record. If that is in fact the goal of the board, we can add that to the, I would assume, the minutes, if that would be okay, with the direction to bring it back on an annual basis.
Yeah, because right now, the way this agenda item reads, I don't see that goal in there. I do not see that this will be, addressed on an annual basis to be, revised, update. I don't see any of that.
So I would love to have that direction from the board if that was something that you all would support, to bring it back on an annual basis with working towards that goal. That would be fantastic. I don't want to put it in a policy, but I would love to have it as a part of the commitment from direction from the board and a commitment from the finance team to bring that forward annually.
Thank you, Commissioner Gamble and Bill. I appreciate you continuing to say with direction from the board, because the policy interest of the prior board doesn't bind this board. There would need to be discussion with each commissioner to ensure that there is majority support.
Absolutely.
To see that reflected in policy. And so if that's what Commissioner Gamble desires, certainly she's made that very plain, but I'm not sure where other commissioners sit on that matter. So, Commissioner Gamble certainly has opportunity to propose that for other commissioners to consider.
Absolutely.
Point, but right now, our policy does reflect the 25%.
Thank you.
Well, then does our policy also need to reflect the fact that, by state law, we only have to carry a 9%?
No, because that is part of the Georgia code. So this is internal policy that would go above and beyond the state code. So right now, when we are reviewed by the rating agencies, they simply look at the state requirement of the 9%, and they view that as our simple policy, which isn't nearly sufficient to address the concerns that we would have as a AAA rated county. So this would be in addition to, and this would be above and beyond. So obviously we, as the county, we're asking the board to consider a 25%, which is a much more comprehensive policy versus the state code, which is very minimalistic.
Right. And again, I guess because we are building up such a reserve and there is no limits as to funding. And again, because the state law would allow us to spend down to 9%, to me, that leaves a lot of money that doesn't have direction to this board or even future boards as far as how to spend. And we all know that the reserve funds have gone up significantly because of the changes in 2008 that the previous chair did when they raised the millage rate. So again, I think if this board is going to be transparent, we need to become very, upfront and acknowledge the fact that we do have a lot more money than we need in our coffers and how it's going to be expended.
Thank you, Commissioner. I think this is a great topic for us to include in our agenda at our retreat, should this be something that you would like to see move forward.
Well, then if it's not going to be discussed until our retreat, then we need to pull this agenda item from consideration for tomorrow.
I don't necessarily support that. As we stated, this is something that's reviewed annually, so we will have time to do this. as Mayor Call, because things are discussed as our retreat, doesn't necessarily put it in play immediately, as it's an opportunity for us to have robust discussion. And certainly considering all that's been discussed today, I think that all of us would need some time to consider that. But again, I do encourage that we do have that conversation. And right now, unless there are the majority of commissioners that desire pulling it, I would ask that we continue to keep this on today's agenda. Because right now, from a best practice perspective, we need to have a policy in our book that addresses how we consider fund balance for the county.
Well, then if we're not going to address it until the retreat, then I would ask that it be added to the agenda to make it clear that this will be reviewed on an annual basis.
Certainly, I think we can do that.
Happy to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Very good. Thank you, Commissioner Burrow. Are there any other questions regarding this policy before we move forward? That includes the bulk of our agenda. We have public comment to follow. Then we have appointments. And I believe we have one appointment by Commissioner Gambrill. And that's an appointment that we will need to vote on.
Yes, and additionally,
One
on
announcement.
Tuesday, we have an add-on to this. It would be an announcement from Commissioner Richardson for the appointment to BZA. We had someone resign from their post, so this is to replace that person in time for their meeting on Wednesday.
Very good.
Sorry, I don't know if you all can hear me when I do speak.
We can hear you. Yes, Commissioner.
Okay, fantastic.
Yes. Did you want to add anything else, Commissioner?
Before we adjourn, I do have one announcement.
Okay. So we have agenda item 38, which is Commissioner Gambrill that has board approval. And then we have number 39, which will just be an announcement by Commissioner Richardson. Then Commissioner's public address will follow. Commissioner Burrow, you stated you have an announcement?
Yes, I do. The
Yes.
governor has proclaimed today Hunker Down Georgia Day. And I just have two words: go dogs.
That's right.
You know,
Can I have a second, Drew?
So moved.
And an amen from this corner.
the yellow jacket in the room will not comment.
I was gonna say, sorry, guys, sorry.
All right, we have another announcement.
Hey, this is Kimberly. I just wanted to remind everyone tomorrow to please join the meeting early by 8:15 if you can. I know some of you have early meetings and may not be able to join it that early, but for those of you that have agenda items, please join by 8:15 so we can do the sound check. And then, like I said, you can just put your video, you can stop your video and put yourself on mute until we actually start up at 9. Additionally, if for some reason you did not see the invite as a panelist, please let me know so I can get that to you today, or I'll resend it to you today. I don't want to try to rush through sending any invites tomorrow, but everybody should have one. So if you don't have it, check your inbox and then let me know today. And then last reminder, again, we're going to start live streaming at 8:45, but when we join at 8:15, the public will be joining as well, the public comment folks, and we've got one person signed up for a public hearing. So we just want to keep any chatter to a minimum. Just let us do the sound checks and then put yourself on mute. And then just let me know if you have any questions prior to tomorrow.
Kimberly, would that have come from you?
Yeah, it's only to the people who are actually presenting an agenda item. So if you don't have a regular agenda item,
Okay, thank you.
not have gotten the invite.
Thank you.
And again, for those that are joining to actually speak, please make sure that you're not, live streaming or anything on YouTube or Cobb TV, that there's a delay. So you're going to be very confused on that. So just join from the meeting and watch the meeting
from the WebEx. Very good. With that, commissioners, we have an executive session for today. I make a motion that we go into our executive session. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Are there any questions or discussion? If I can see by a show of hands, we approve the motion. All right. Commissioner Richardson.
Is that legal?
Just in the interest of time and because we're virtual, are you okay with us delaying for about 10 minutes?
That's fine.
All right, so I'll see everybody for that executive session. Well, yes, at 9:51. Thanks, commissioners.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
You're welcome. That concludes our agenda session. Thanks.